I'm gonna throw a bone to a gent who's been trying to get you to in for a couple of times now. Angus wanted to say, "Hey from Edinburgh," to you.
Nice.
Shaun, could you explain a little bit about the Scots language and maybe recommend some folks promoting the Renaissance of the Lead?
Yeah.
Now you had mentioned, I know you've talked to us a little bit about being forced to learn Gaelic or whatnot in primary school, right?
Yeah.
So if you want to repeat yourself a little bit.
Definitely. This is a really important subject. So a lot of people might not know this, especially in a US audience, but I certainly remember when I was at school as a kid in the 90s that speaking Scots was discouraged. Definitely discouraged, because it was seen as lesser. It was seen as common. It was seen as, can I say, thuggish?
Slangy kind
Slangy.
of. It's not proper.
Yeah, and if you want to progress in life, if you want to get the best job, if you want to go to university, you can't speak like that. And that's something that's been deeply ingrained in the Scottish society for a number of years now. And it's a great shame, because that, I think, contributed a lot to how some people feel about Scotland and Scots as a language. That's what it is. Scots, to me, in my mind, for many years was a slang. And many people's parents also taught them that as well. And it wasn't from malice on parents' side. It was just because, you know, there was a lot of, recessions and all the rest of it over time. People want their best for their kids. They want them to progress and get good jobs and all the rest of it. And it was always seen as the fact that if you speak like that, you're not going to progress in life. You're going to be a common, working class Scottish person.
Right.
But there's this movement now where people are saying, hold on a minute. What's wrong with being a proud working class Scottish person? What's wrong with reclaiming our language that is a language? It's not slang. It's something we speak because it's where we're from, and that's how we speak. And actually, it's not something that's new. It's been spoken for hundreds and hundreds of years. Now, there's massive debate online. If you go on Twitter and search some of the people who are trying to revive the language, there's a lot of young people, by the way, and I think it's been led by young people, this kind of renaissance of the Scots Lead. The abuse that they get from Scottish people, from other Scottish people, for trying to progress the language. People say you're making up a language, and that's really sad to see.
Now, here's the question for you: Are they, in speaking Scots, are they trying to say that it is a different language than English? So you would speak Scots with certain friends who also speak Scots, but if there's somebody you're speaking to, maybe from Edinburgh or somewhere where it's a little more posh,
yes,
that they would speak, regular English versus Scots.
Well, here's the thing, right? I never realized this until recently, until this conversation came up.
There's a difference.
That I'm multilingual.
Yeah.
I never realized this. And most Scottish people, especially from a working class background like I am, don't realize this. And they can flip between the two. Right now, I'm not speaking Scots.
Yeah.
I'm speaking English because this is an international audience. I work in London and I know how to turn it on. When I speak to my friends, and you can people who are around me when I'm on the phone,
give us a bit.
Oh, it's hard to do. Like, it sounds really unnatural if I'm not speaking to my friends, right? But if I phone up one of my friends and start speaking Scots, like, my wife will tell you, she'll not understand a word I'm speaking. But in my head, it never clicked that I'm speaking another language. It's been multilingual, because you can switch between two languages. Some people will say it's a dialect, and in some ways it is. It takes the form of a dialect.
Figure it out. You can pick it up a little bit.
Yeah, but then when you look back at history, at people like Rabbie Burns, who wrote exclusively in this language, with massive books, writing lots of words, then you realise actually that can't be anything other than a language. To be able to write books as elaborate as they were about lots of different subjects and poetry in that language. And so there is a movement now of young people, and there's a lot of people on Twitter who are really, this is what they talk about, is the Scots language and keeping it alive and bringing it to the forefront. And they get such abuse for it. Really, it's really quite nasty, which is a great shame. But there's a movement of bringing it back and letting people like myself realise that actually what we've spoken since a young age is a language, and it is different between different parts of Scotland. For example, in the north east, Aberdeen and up, they have Doric, which is another
ancient language. Yeah.
Ancient language / dialect. It's debatable, but it's very different. It's very unique, and so it's a really interesting topic. That I think Scots is a fascinating subject, but actually it's existed for hundreds of years. We've had it. It was an official part of the Scottish government for a long time before the days of Scotland joining the Union. That's how legal documents were written.
Right.
And so it's a language. It's just that I think 80s, 90s, when I grew up, it was seen as lesser.
The interesting debate to me is, where does it become a dialect versus its own language? Or where is it just an accent versus its own language? Because like in America, you know, we're talking about earlier, whether you have, you know, from Boston or from the South, like it's or you know, there's different ways to, or different phrases and different, you know, little euphemisms that people have that make it different, and somebody from, you know, one area may not understand someone from another area if they use particular words. But at what point does this scale tip and you say, okay, this is no longer a dialect, or this is no longer an accent, this is a wholly new different thing?
Yeah, I mean, well, in this conversation I've been speaking the Queen's English but with a Scottish accent. That's an accent, right? You can tell it's not American English.
Yeah.
So that's where you define, I think, the accent part of it. Where it becomes a language is where you start introducing words like I, dinna ken, these type of words, which are actually Scots words.
Yeah.
And we kind of interchange them sometimes with our English, depending on who we're speaking to. And like I said, when you flip over to speaking to somebody who's like from your neighbourhood where you grew up, then it totally flips into another language. And I dare say that you guys might not understand it as well. Certainly,
Dinna ken means do not know.
Yeah,
I know that.
No, but there's like a lot more to it. Like
I know really, there is.
But like, I think it's a really interesting debate, this, and it's something that I'm really glad that there's lots of young people now taking this forward and actually standing up and saying, "Let's be proud of this." It's not something that should be oppressed anymore.
Yeah.
The original person who asked the question is mentioning a dictionary or works by someone named Len Penny.
Yes, she's one of the Twitter people who are taking this forward. One of the young girls on Twitter, and she's really good. She's like, she takes a lot of abuse, but she's very firm in this. Like, she wants to keep the language alive, and that's how she speaks, and she just wants to be proud of it, and that's great.
Nice.
Hopefully that gives a bit of a picture, but it is a heated debate. I'm not going to say that it's not, and there's a lot of people who are in Scotland who would quite happily shut it down.
That's sad.
Yeah.
Yeah. Way to end the show, Sean.
See, I don't think that people really understand the fact that when we're speaking Scots, it's an actual language. That is something that a lot of people try and put us down as Scottish people, that we shouldn't be speaking like that. But actually, it's part of our cultural heritage. And whatever your cultural heritage is, deserves to be celebrated. So I hope you've enjoyed this video and all the other ones we've been doing in this series. There will be a playlist up here with the whole lot of them. Go and watch them. Binge them. I'm sure you're going to like them. Thank you for watching.